Right, so I want to come in here today and talk about the third book in the Stormlight Archive series. We're talking about Oathbringer today, and I want to start this video off by saying I didn't dislike this book. I quite enjoyed it, actually. However, this is the first one for me where I kind of feel like I felt the page count. I felt the 1,378 or 79 pages. And that might just be because it's an extra 100 pages on top of Words of Radiance. That might just be because the book that I read before this was Edge Dancer, which was, tiny, which was, a novella. So it might just be from going from holding that, something I can actually pick up, to reading this, and it just being a lot more girthy, a lot more weighty, a lot more, feeling like a lot more of something in your hands. But this one, I feel like the first half of it definitely is a more, I don't want to say slow, because every Brandon Sanderson novel that I've read up until this point has been a slow burn. This is the same as well. Once it does start picking up, it's breakneck from basically the middle of the book to the end. The middle to the end, breakneck. The first half is where I kind of was like, when are the wheels going to start turning? I know the wheels are going to start turning at some point, but it feels like it's taking longer to get there. And with every other book in the series, technically it has been longer to get there. However, this one kind of felt like it was spinning wheels a lot more at the start of it than the other books in the series were doing. That being said, this book does do some of the most interesting things with its characters. Right off the bat, Kaladin has almost nothing to do in this book. He goes to see his parents at the very start of the book. He spends a bit of time with the Parshman, and he comes back and he's like, maybe what we're doing isn't great. Maybe we shouldn't be, killing the Parshman, and maybe we shouldn't be having a war. And it doesn't really go anywhere, because he still decides to fight the Parshman by the end of the book anyway. And he also, spoilers for Oathbringer, spoilers for Words of Radiance as well, but mainly spoilers for Oathbringer. This is the third book in a series. There's no way that I can talk about this without talking about the other books without going into spoilers. And if you're watching this video, you've read this book by now anyway. I'm getting onto this late. But yeah, if the one big thing that happens to Kaladin, and I thought Kaladin was, and there is a conversation right at the end of the book between Kaladin and Teft, where they're kind of talking about whether their problems go away when they become a Radiant, and Kaladin's like, no, they get worse, but you get help to deal with it. Which is interesting, and that is how he's been treating it he has gotten more depressed as the series has gone on. And that's where I kind of clicked in my head what Stormlight is about, what the Stormlight Archive is about. It's not about the war, it's not about the battles, it's not about, it's about the characters, and it's about, more importantly, depression. It's more importantly just all, even Lopen says at the end of the book, to be able to wield Stormlight, or to be able to be a Radiant, you have to be broken before, because the Stormlight has to find a place that is broken to get into your soul. So that's the big through line with every character in the series. They're all a different version of depressed. They all have some kind of mental health attachment to them. Where the first book was mostly about Kaladin, and he definitely has, just straight up vanilla depression. Just, I've seen everyone die, I'm fed up with this world. Shallan, who takes the centre stage in the second book, we don't get much of it in that, but we definitely get it in this, that she's starting to, or she's developing a bit of a multiple personality disorder, and that's kind of her big thing to get over, or to deal with, or learn to live with throughout this book. And the way that they do it is interesting. I still think Shallan is the least interesting character, in my opinion, of the ones that do take centre stage. I don't dislike when she's the focal point, but when she is the focal point, especially when she's doing stuff as Vale, I'm like, can we just get back to one of the other characters, please? Or can we just get back to the things that are important? I don't care about the Ghostbloods. Maybe a book in the future is going to make me care about the Ghostbloods. I just don't care about the Ghostbloods. And I'm not as nice and as sweet as the romance between Shallan and Adeline is. That's not what I'm reading the book for. But it does coalesce nicely, and it does, become the last thing that we get in the book is their actual marriage. So it does, end up in a nice place. And like I said, Shallan isn't a character that I inherently dislike. I like Shallan. It's just I like her less than other characters. I like her less than Kaladin. I like her less than Dalinar. Dalinar takes centre stage in this book, and this whole book is basically just Dalinar recounting his pain. The book starts with Dalinar writing his memoir, and the book ends with him signing off his memoir. And the book isn't really Dalinar's memoir. It's more just what is happening after Words of Radiance, and just, coalescing into a big fight. But it is Dalinar putting together the coalition, which inevitably breaks apart because of the amount of trust that Dalinar puts into Taravangian, who inevitably betrays his trust. And I wasn't expecting Taravangian to actually just straight up own up to, oh yeah, I sent the assassin in white, who's now a goodie by the end of this book, by the way. Really interesting character, the assassin in white. He's probably up there as one of my favourites. Dalinar is definitely at the top. I think he's definitely the most interesting character in the series, especially after this book, where we get everything to do with his backstory. which is heartbreaking and ends with one of the most badass, if a little bit... I don't think Dalinar's big hero moment in this book would translate to screen, or would translate to... This was the book that made me feel the most like Oathbringer or the Stormlight Archive either has to be a anime, a la, what's the frickin' League of Legends show called? Frickin' watched it as well. The League of Legends show. The League of Legends show, which I'm forgetting the name of at the moment. I'm really embarrassed that I'm forgetting the name of it. Fuck. It's completely escaped me. But yeah, this would fit more in that style than it would like a live action thing. I don't think this would translate well to live action. I don't think the specific things that are being said... I know that a script for an adaptation isn't one for one with the book. Never is. But I feel like the big moment and the big turn for Dalinar, when he's like, you can't feel my... or you can't have my pain, that wouldn't translate to live action without feeling a little bit cringe. I feel like it has to either be animated or it has to be in a video game where you're spending enough time with Dalinar to have that moment feel earned. It feels earned in this because you're spending a lot of time with Dalinar, and you know exactly what he's been through. This is also where, and this book especially, is where I started like crossing the dots between, are we just doing Mistborn again? Is this just Mistborn again? You know, we've got a group of characters that all have like mismatched personalities. They're all a little bit weird, and they all get their abilities by ingesting a certain... in Mistborn it was ingesting metals. In this it's ingesting Stormlight, or in Liv's case, food. It's not explained in this why she's powered by food instead of Stormlight. Maybe she just isn't. Maybe she isn't powered by Stormlight, but she's just hungry all the time. But yeah, and the third Mistborn book is about is essentially a fetch quest to find these like leftovers or like caverns or like safe houses that the Lord Ruler left. And this book, which is the third book in the Stormlight Archive series, is a fetch quest to find Oath Gates. So we've got 2 third books in the series that are fetch quests. This one kind of forgets about the fetch quest halfway through, which I think is to the benefit of the book. But we're still presented with a fetch quest of, we've got to find all of these... We've got to find all of these Oath Gates. That's probably what the next book's going to be. The biggest, I think, correlation between this and Mistborn, the big twist of Mistborn is that everything that Vin had been doing was orchestrated by the big bad. It was orchestrated by Agony? was orchestrated by the big bad of that series. Everything that Dalinar Kholin has been doing in Oathbringer, in the whole Stormlight archive, everything down to him feeling the thrill has been orchestrated by the big bad of this odium. And when that reveal took place, or when that reveal was revealed, I was just like, that's just Mistborn again. And I mean, God forbid Brandon Sanderson use plot tropes in two different series. And maybe, if you read Mistborn as it was coming out, and if you read Stormlight Archive as it was coming out, you wouldn't have made those links, and you wouldn't have crossed those lines and dotted those I's. However, reading them so close together, I did notice, oh shit, that's the same twist as the Mistborn twist. That's the same twist. So yeah, I'm noticing, and hopefully going into the fourth book, which there is no fourth Mistborn book. It ends at 3, and I very much doubt that. And I think Mistborn Era 2 was written after. Rhythm of War. It was written after Rhythm of War. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, I think the Mistborn connections are probably going to end, because we're leading into, fourth book in the series. We're leading into basically a new era, because big bads are defeated by the end of this. Kaladin kind of gets his big fight with Amaram that he's wanted for 2 books now. Dalinar essentially becomes God. Shallan has kind of coalesced all of her personalities into just 3. That she's kind of she's turned into Moon Knight, which is really cool. Adolin is having a breakdown, and Jasna Kholin is now queen. So, the thing with this, and the thing that I've noticed, this is the first cover that I don't understand. And I know this isn't the traditional cover of Oathbringer. This is a reprinted, different variant cover. I'm talking like a comic book person with all this variant cover bullshit. But this is the first one where I don't understand why Jasna is the cover character. Surely it would be Dalinar, because he's the main character. And he's the one that gets definitely the most stuff to do. I didn't understand it until literally the last page of the last chapter. Well, not the last page of the last chapter, but within the last 3 pages of the last chapter. Not including the post-credit scene, the epilogue. Yeah, that's the thing. Why are people now suddenly against post-credit scenes? Stay. It allows people to actually see. It allows people to actually sit and watch the credits and see the people that made the film. B, it's an epilogue. Stories have had epilogues forever. An after credit scene is just an epilogue. you know. So, but that's my little tangent over. Yeah, I didn't understand it until the thing of, oh shit, Jasna's the queen now. So that then immediately made it make sense why she's the cover character. She doesn't get much of anything to do throughout the book. She's not prevalent throughout most of the book. You know, people don't find out that she's still alive until page 300, and then, you know, and then most of the book is spent in Kholinar and in Shadesmar, and she's not there, and she's, you know, she's not really prevalent until she's not really prevalent in Dalinar's flashbacks until she reads The Way of Kings to him, and that's kind of the big catalyst that makes him go, oh shit, I'm a terrible person, I need to not be a terrible person. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's why. Because she's not really a main character. She's just kind of the inciting incident into a lot of other characters' main things. She's kind of got a similar role to Wit. Just she's not, you know, cracking jokes and being insane most of the time. Even though she's definitely insane. I'm probably going to get more of that in Rhythm of War. I have no idea who the focal character of Rhythm of War is going to be, because every book of this has had a different character having the flashbacks. I think the next book is probably going to be Jasna's. However, the next book that I'm going to be reading is Dawnshard, and when I'm done with that, I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break of Stormlight, just because I've had 3 of these to read. And yeah, it's become a thing where I just want to take a break. I've realised that this year I've exclusively read Brandon Sanderson to the point where I just want a different voice. I want a different taste, you know. So there are things that I have to like use as a little palate cleanser before Rhythm of War that I'll definitely make videos about as well. Obviously, I'll be going back to talking about comics for a little bit for like a couple of videos. Do have a few comic booky videos to make in the interim. Jazz's book, I was the YouTuber Drawer Jazza, probably now known as only Jazza, kind of like Rihanna or Beyonce or I'm trying to think of is there someone called Jake, where the J is like an upside the J is just a V, or the A is just a V. Javake. I was trying to think of a guy that just goes by one name. Prince. Fucking Prince, of course. Like Prince. Yeah. Jazz's book came out. I've got that on the way. And yeah, I'm going to be doing a video on that just because I think I can YouTubeify that book. I can kind of, you know, turning that into content is easier and more sellable. And also I think it's going to be good because I'm a fan of Jazza anyway. Having a character called Jasna in this and having a person that I'm talking about called Jazza is confusing. I'm probably going to mess that up at some point. But anyways, Oathbringer is good. It just felt the slowest of the books so far, and I felt the most kind of stealing of ideas. I mean, it's Brandon Sanders. It's Brandon Steele. It's Sanderson. Sorry, you should never refer to an artist or an author by their first name. It's Sanderson, unless you're friends with them or you're using it colloquially. But I'm not, so I'll refer to them as either his full name or his surname. Sanderson is just stealing from himself, so it's okay. And it's not necessarily stealing. It's probably just me making connections that aren't there because the books are so close together. But I am noticing, there's a character in Mistborn called Sazed. There's a character in this called Sazeth. One of the main characters of Mistborn Book 1 is called Kelsia, which gets shortened to Kel. The main character of this is Kaladin, which gets shortened to Cal. There isn't, you can kind of square the circle with Elend and Adolin, and they are basically the same person. Personality-wise, not what they do. They're basically the same person, and the romance between Shallan and Adolin does have hints of Vin and Elend. But that's kind of it with that. Obviously there's a lot more to this and a lot more development to this and development to how the powers work in this, because there's just more time to devote to that. But yeah, I noticed lines crossing, and I noticed, things happening in this that are kind of mirrors to Mistborn. And maybe because I know that they're kind of connected and they're kind of in the same so maybe they're in the bubble of the Cosmere. So maybe the connections that I'm noticing are deliberate. And they're meant to be there to basically be this is connected to Mistborn in more than just it's in the Cosmere, and more than just it's written by the same guy kind of thing. So maybe that's not as much of a criticism as it is just me noticing, oh they're meant to be connected, or there's meant to be connections there, or that are made. Oathbringer, good book. I recommend. Obviously, don't read Oathbringer without reading without reading Way of Kings and Words of Radiance first. I would say read Mistborn first as well. Some may say read Warbreaker before reading any of these. I didn't do that. I'm completely fine. I'd say you can just jump into Way of Kings and you'd be okay. But yeah, I would recommend reading Mistborn just because it's really good. First off, anyway. But yeah, Oathbringer. It's definitely the biggest book of the series, and it does get your Avengers moment where all the characters come together, and you get your hero pose, and then big battle happens, or in the middle of the big battle. But yeah, I like this one. I don't know if it's my favourite. I've kind of got too many complaints with it, or too many just things that I found took me out of it, and there were too many points where I was reading this where I was like, I need a break after this. There were too many points where I was like, this is going to be my last Stormlight book for a while. For me to say that this is my favourite of the series. But by the end of it, it does come together really well. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Oathbringer. If you've been reading these books along with me, which I very much doubt, let me know what you've been thinking of the series so far. Please do not put any comments or put any spoilers for Rhythm of War or for Wind and Truth in the comments. If you do that, they will be deleted. And I won't, and I will personally hate you because I haven't read those books yet. But yeah, just don't do that. That's just not nice. It's not good. If you post spoilers, you're a terrible human being. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Peace.